And I don't want to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes. I have complained about the officiating. I've complained about some of the issues in this game from a Bengals perspective. But what he did yesterday on that high ankle sprain and playing through it, getting all the treatment that he got, and he thanked the trainers and the doctors to go out there and play at a high level, was nothing short of amazing. I mean, one of my main takes on this game was the fact that this is a 3 to 6 week injury, at the very least, and some people get surgery on it and are out for a month or 2 months. And for him to come back in 8 days and to play that well and only really show it a couple of times, show that he was bothered by it a couple of times throughout the game was absolutely remarkable. So he earned it. There's no doubt about it. I don't believe that that anything should be taken away from him. Now, the two things I want to point out to you, because you're sitting there at the game, Kansas City, 9 degrees, watching this thing from the sideline. These are the two times that I thought that the Bengals were going to win the game. So when they get the ball with 9:18 left in the fourth quarter, and it's a 2nd and 13, and Joe Burrow scrambles for 14 yards from the 15 to the 29. Big play at that point. Then they hand the ball off to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, bang, 7 yards at 2nd and 3. So the clock is going, it goes 9, down to 8, down to 7. I'm like, this is the drive right here. 2nd and 3. So then what do they do on 2nd and 3? That's the one where they go way down the field to Jamar Chase on 2nd and 3. And then, of course, on 3rd and 3, they go way down the right sideline unnecessarily in back-to-back plays to T. Higgins, where that ball ends up being intercepted. Now, I know that they had success getting the ball down the field in this game, and you got to take shots and get into your best player's hands. But to do it on back-to-back plays like that, when you really you wanted to methodically get down the field and get the lead and then put the pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs to essentially give them the ball back in that situation so quickly, I thought was terrible. Now, they did get the ball back after that. They got the ball back after that with no harm, no foul, still a tied game. And then this is where on 3rd and 16, Joe Burrow, after it looks like he breaks his wrist and he's holding his wrist and he's in pain, I'm like, oh my God, he makes this 3rd and 16 pass to Hayden Hurst. I'm going, there's your Foxwoods Resort Casino turning point of the game, that play right there. And then what happens? You get Hayden Hurst for 2 yards. Okay. Then they call a timeout. Then you have a pass to Irwin. You had that for 2 yards. Then after that, the big sack on 3rd and 8 from Chris Jones. That was a critical play. And then, of course, the punt with the punt return and everything else.
Do you know that the Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs have played 4 times, and all 4 times the Bengal defense has held the Chiefs without a touchdown in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why the Bengals were doing what they were doing offensively, especially throwing the balls down the field, is because you had 3 rookies back there. And, that deflection by that rookie was unbelievable, and it was a great play. And that was the same play that they had hit on 4th down to Jamar Chase on the other side. Same type of play, trying to split 2 guys with the double move and having your 6'5" receiver go up and get it. And by the way, you bring up Chris Jones. All Chris Jones did this past week was he had 5 quarterback hits. He had 3 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, 2 holding calls were drawn, and 1 intentional grounding. That's an impact player right there,
yeah.
and we felt. I know that we did talk about this yesterday Friday when we were picking the game, how he was going to be probably the biggest problem for the offensive line of the Cincinnati Bengals, because Buffalo doesn't have anybody like him, and this is where this patchwork backup offensive line was really struggling, and it reminded me a lot of last year's divisional game against Tennessee. But the difference here is that Ryan Tannehill was throwing interceptions in that game. Patrick Mahomes was not doing that in this game.
Yeah, what it reminded me of was Aaron Donald's impact on the Super Bowl against Joe Burrow. That's what it reminded me of. It's like, where is that guy and how is he going to screw up the game? That's the way I felt about Chris Jones yesterday, who was playing like a man possessed. He felt like he didn't do enough in the AFC Championship game last year, so he came into this game with another opportunity and he wasn't going to let it slip through his fingers. So I give give, credit to the Chiefs' best players. And, both teams, suffered major injuries and big losses, offensively. I mean, you had Kadarius Toney go down. You had Juju Smith-Schuster go down. You had McCole Hardman all go down for the Chiefs. And then Tyler Boyd, who is a huge part of that Cincinnati Bengals offense, ends up going down and not returning to the game. So that put extra pressure on, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, obviously Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who we haven't mentioned yet, with a tremendous game when they absolutely needed him. And, of course, Kelsey does his, his requisite big game as well.
I'll tell you, that touchdown pass that Mahomes had to Valdez-Scantling right underneath Mike Hilton.
Yeah.
And Mike Hilton was the one who was talking about Burrowhead last year. And this came on I think it was third down play. And it was an unbelievable throw. And Patrick had to stay in that pocket. He was bouncing around on that bad ankle. Again, like that ankle was affecting him. I don't care what anybody says. His numbers say otherwise. He moved around in the pocket. I thought his offensive line did an incredible job of protecting him. Incredible.
Yeah, no, So they just played this twice. Can you see the monitor? What they're playing? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys should just play that again. This is a real nitpicky situation, but I think that the roughing the passer call had something to do with this. So Hubbard, the defensive end for the Bengals, who has had a very good year, had a good game last year as well.
He also recovered another fumble.
Right. I thought he had a real shot at Patrick Mahomes before he threw that ball, and it felt to me like he pulled up a little bit, and he could have at very least extended his arms and had disrupted this pass. Right here. You see that?
Yes.
And it feels like because of the pass interference, the roughing the passer calls, did not go right after Patrick Mahomes. And I felt like I saw that live. The replays made me validated on that. And it's a small criticism. The guy played a big game, but I just thought at the very least, he's right there, and he hesitated for a moment as opposed to exploding into him. And I'm telling you, that was in the back of his head. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't stuff.
I mean, the Bengals will wake up this morning, they'll look at the tape, and they'll be like, man, we just played against the 31st ranked pass defense. And, Chris Jones just blew up all of that. I mean, he was the one guy, he was the one-man wrecking crew who just, play after play after play was relentless. And if somehow they could have controlled him. Now, there was a point where I think Joe Burrow had attempted like 30 passes in a row, and he didn't get sacked. And he got sacked late in that game when it mattered most. So there was a sense early on in the game you could feel like Kansas City was really controlling the game defensively. There was no question about that. And they were all over Joe Burrow. And then later on in that game, especially in the second half, the Bengals passing game became the Bengals passing game. In other words, they found their rhythm, and there were not a lot of sacks until that last couple series. So, Chris Jones had a hell of a game. I just read you his stats for defensive line, like Hassan Reddick for the Philadelphia Eagles. Those were monster games by those two players.
I mean, I never want to be the guy that says that it's all about the officials, but I did think that there was moments where the officiating did swing the momentum into this game and gave the Chiefs opportunities that they probably didn't deserve. But I will keep going back to it. The bigger issue was the Cincinnati Bengals twice in the fourth quarter had the ball with the quarterback that you want to have the ball, that they talked about. They own that place. They own Mahomes. They were in the game last year. They beat them last year, and they didn't get it done on both of those drives. That's why they ultimately ended up losing the game.
Yeah, I think if you said to the Bengals before the game, hey, the game's going to be tied and you're going to have the ball in the fourth quarter twice late in the game, and you're going to have a chance to win it twice late in the game, would you take that? And they would obviously say yes. The other thing, too, unfortunately for Cincinnati, I do believe this was the best team that Cincinnati's ever had. If they had stayed healthy offensive line-wise, I think this team would have won a Super Bowl, and they would have. I think this is the best team they've ever had. And look, I was on one of those great teams, and for me to sit here and say that, and to watch those players yesterday after the game, just how disappointed they were, because I think that they were really, really confident that they were going to come away with a win.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and they should have been. I mean, I was very confident they were going to come away with a win. I really thought Mahomes was going to be much more hobbled than he was. I could not believe that he could move as well as he did, and I would assume that his mobility is going to get even better in a couple of weeks against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.